Joining me now, Ned Ryun. He is the president founder of American Majority. Ned, great to have you.
Yeah, great to be with you, John.
Ned, I was excited to have you on today. I saw you on Fox News on Friday, texted you immediately. And what you talked about was having a red state rebellion in reaction to the shutdown that's going on. And the other thing, Ned, that I really want you to comment on, the stripping away of our civil liberties by these governors, and there's been no reaction. Why?
No,
what's going on?
I mean, this is what is deeply troubling to me, John, that, you know, and I made this comment to Tucker Friday night, that if we as an American people are going to wholesale let our civil liberties just walk out the door over a virus that I'm convinced not going to have the mortality rates or the amount of deaths that the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu had, then we don't deserve to be a free people. We don't deserve to be a constitutional republic. I mean, this is, again, one of the reasons I wrote the book, Restoring Our Republic. But I think part of the thing that's troubling me a little bit, John, is people don't understand their rights, right? They don't understand what are my rights, where do they come from, you know, what are my, you know, what's my response to this kind of behavior coming from government? Because what you see, these petty little tyrants, I'm looking at Kentucky. Oh, my gosh, Kentucky, red state Kentucky, and what they tried to do to Easter services and showing up with the state police and trying to, you know, forbid people from being there. And then it was going to be in-car services, and there was talk about $500 fines per person who showed up. This is absurd. And I think the thing, I was talking about a couple different things with Tucker. First of all, you know, this idea of Apple and Google coming together to form a Chinese coronavirus app to be able to track people who have it. You know, they're saying it'll be voluntary at first. I mean, this isn't that far from what China was doing. China was compelling. I mean, they were forcing people to download an app and then giving them, you know, a code to show what kind of health levels they had, restricting travel, restricting their ability to go certain places or check into hotels, all these things. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why are we allowing big tech? And if you trust big tech these days, you're crazy. Why are we allowing big tech and big government to all of a sudden start to invade even more so our privacy? And this is what concerns me a little bit, John, about all this hysteria and this panic that's been whipped up. In these situations, people, you know, never let a good crisis go to waste, are trying to, again, backdoor some of the things that they want to do. And it is great concern to me. And this is one of the things I hope Donald Trump addresses this week, in which he says, enough of this. I was encouraged by A.G. Barr saying, hey, we're going to look into people trying to restrict religious services. He's got to remind people, Trump has to remind people, we are not going to let your constitutional rights be violated. We're not going to tolerate this any longer. And I think what has to happen over the next couple of weeks, you know, I see what Governor Abbott in Texas is thinking about doing. I see Governor Ducey in Arizona, some of these other red state governors. I think they've got to take the bull by the horns and that May 4th, which is a Monday, say we are going to open for business. We're going to take very strong, you know, we're going to encourage people to wear masks, businesses. We're going to encourage people to take temperatures before they walk in. I mean, all of these things that allow a lot of people to get back to normal, go back to work, restaurants to open. I'm not talking about having concerts or mass gatherings coming out of the gate, but people have to say enough is enough. And I'm looking, John, at some of the things that are taking place in Denmark, for example. Mm-hmm. And they're realizing that the mortality rate is not nearly as high as what they thought it was, and they're going to be reopening their schools this week. Mm-hmm. And so I think we've got to take a really hard look at what the real stats are, the real figures are, and go, okay, we're going to be responsible, but we've got to get back to business. Because the other thing I pointed out to Tucker, if we're not careful, we might actually see more suicides and bankruptcies from coronavirus than actual deaths, and that is a very troubling thing.
Well, not only are you going to see suicides, you're going to see alcoholism go up. You're going to see domestic violence is going to skyrocket. You're going to see drug addiction go up, opioid addiction go up. All these things that happen when you lose your job, you lose your business, you lose your home, you can't provide for your family. The social cost of the economic shutdown, I've been saying this, Ned, for 1 month, is going to way overcome anything that has to do with this virus. And all I've been saying for 1 month is put up the social costs and the economic damage of the shutdown. Put that side by side, the virus numbers, side by side. Here's so many suicides. Here's so many bankruptcies. Here's so many companies went under. Here's so many jobs are gone. This is the unemployment, which I think at the end of the month is going to be over 30 million. You talked about a red state revolt. How would that work, Ned?
Well, I think with the next 2 weeks through the end of April, first of all, you know, you got to flatten the media hysteria curve and say, you know, media has an agenda, right? They're trying to drive a certain narrative. we've been looking at the facts and statistics. I think, the numbers in Arizona show that there's definitely not nearly the impact that New York City's had with coronavirus. So I think Governor Ducey, among other governors, has to say, hey, here are the facts, here are the statistics, we're prepared, but what we want to do, and they lay out guidelines. We want to encourage people, if you're going to go out, wear masks. If you're going to go to a restaurant, we'll encourage businesses check people's temperatures before they walk in. All of these things that will allow them to say, okay, we are going out in a responsible way. Encourage those that maybe the more vulnerable parts of the population, older generations, those with high blood pressure. Hey, you might want to be very careful about your movement. But 90% of the state should be able to get back to business fairly quickly. And you hear DeSantis down in Florida talking about potentially reopening schools. I think there are things that, again, they have to start messaging now. These governors have to start messaging, hey, we're looking at facts, we're looking at statistics, we're looking at other places like Denmark around the world, and understanding that if there are certain percentages that we're much lower. The mortality rate is far, far lower than people had originally said even 3 or 4 weeks ago. Hey, here are the facts, here are the statistics, start to communicate and drive a narrative so that the people go, you know what, this is right, we're going to listen to this, we're going to say, hey, we're going to be careful, but we're going to be responsible, but we're going to get back to business. We have to get back to business, John, because my concern is we already might have put ourselves in a situation. This is going to take a long time to dig out of the economic damage that we've done to ourselves. If we allow this to continue another few months, I mean, you hear crazy talk, well, we might have to have this shelter-in-place quarantine for the next 18 months. Incredibly devastating. We might be decades building out if we go that long. I think another few weeks, 1st of May, we get back to business, and it just has to be a very rational, numbers-driven conversation from these governors, and I think they can make it. I think we're seeing more and more facts and statistics that allow them to say this is not nearly as devastating as we thought, time to get back to business, and I think they can do it, but they got to start this week.
Okay, so which governor is going to do it first? Because it's always a herd mentality, just like we predicted the other way, that all the Democratic governors would outdo each other, and now Michigan governor says you can't buy seeds to plant a flower. Okay,
absurd.
So it's absurd. Which governor is going to break the dam?
I think it's going to be probably Abbott or Ducey, either Abbott of Texas or Ducey of Arizona. That you hear the rumblings. I've had a little bit of information from certain people based off some calls. I think it's going to be one of those two that's going to say, okay, enough's enough. We're going to go for this. You're hearing rumblings out of Arizona that maybe they're looking at May 7th for saying we're going to go for it. So I think it's going to be one of those two governors. You get 2 of them, maybe 3 of them to go and say we're going to do this.
It's over.
It's over. Then all
it's
of a sudden
over.
You've got maybe 10 or 12 or 15. And on top of that, I'm seeing things from Trump just over the last couple of days that he's saying, okay, every states get ready. Make sure you've got enough masks on hand. You can start to see he's laying the groundwork for when he's going to say on April 30th, we've done what we needed to do. We got to get back to work. Be ready, be prepared, get ready to go. So I think you see about 3 or 4 initially, builds to 10 or 15, and then they've got Trump supporting them in their work. And then all of a sudden it becomes one of those things of like, hey, you know what? New York, New Jersey, you can do whatever you want. Michigan, you can go ahead and be crazy. The rest of us are going to get back to work here. And we're going to try and get back to as much of a normal life as possible in a responsible way.
Ned, we're going to get back to work. We're going to get back to school. I just had Dr. Klein on, and he said something interesting. He said, I don't care how much studying you're doing at home, the school system's not set up for distance learning. And so we're like falling behind now countries that we have to compete with, people that are of that age that need the education. Doesn't make any sense. My son's a school teacher, high school teacher in Mississippi, and he tells me every day he's in the Delta that he's got a contingent of students that they don't even have internet. I mean, they don't have anything. So he actually has to mail them this stuff. They've got to mail it back. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. I remain your Godzilla of the truth. We're with Ned Ryun. Ned is the founder and CEO of American Majority, a conservative organization that identifies and trains candidates and activists who become involved in local government. He's also the author of a great book. And Ned, if people want to get your book, where do they go?
They can go to Amazon. Restoring Our Republic. Go to Amazon. You can order it. This is one of those things, Sean, that, again, going back to what I initially said, I mean, have we lost our minds? And it's one of those things where I think that in some ways it feels like we've lost our minds, but it's also due to ignorance. As I see what we've done over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, people just going and saying, we're going to give away these freedoms, our liberties, for the sake of potentially a little security against a virus that I don't think is nearly as devastating. And I think it's based off ignorance. I mean, I really do. Our education system has failed us in some ways in really teaching us about where do our freedoms come from, where do our liberties come from. Not from government. Do not trust government. Government's a necessary evil. I understand that we have a need for government, but at the same time, it's like we've just folded like a cheap deck of cards in which people have all of a sudden started just take away these freedoms, say you can't worship on Easter, you can't do these things just because we're trying to keep you safe. And I'm thinking, that's not how this was intended. Government is there to work for us on our behalf, but not dictate to us how we're supposed to act. And this is the thing that troubles me, John. Buck Sexton, who's a buddy, he's got his radio show, he's got his podcast. He tweeted out something the other day in which he said, it's amazing to me, it's almost like a social experiment in which certain people have decided we're going to try and use this as a vehicle and see how people respond. It almost feels like, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, John, but it almost feels like this is like a test run. What if we actually say something and do this? How will the people respond? And I got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed. I'm a little embarrassed about the American people folding so quickly based off something that I don't think is nearly as devastating as people originally were trying to tell us. And at some point, the American people have to stand up for themselves and say, consent of the governed actually still means something, and we did not consent to this. We do not consent to all of these freedoms that you're taking away. It's time for the American people to stand up and go, no. You work for us. We do not work for you.
Ned, it's always easier the second time. The capitulation of average Americans and just accepting. Right. See, that's why I think you're onto something, and not far off what I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. I'm shocked. Part of it is dismayed, but the bigger part of it is shocked at the lack of pushback from average Americans. And it's like, okay, I'll understand that I can't go out. I understand that I can't buy seeds. I can't buy an American flag in Michigan. I can't walk my dog over 2 times a day. Can't do it 3 times. I understand there's a 1-800 neighborhood rat line in some states.
Snitches.
Now there's going to be a cell phone, an app on my phone. Now there's going to be an immunity card. It's all okay as long as you can keep me safe. So the second time is going to be easier, right?
I said to Tucker, Trump should bench Fauci for making those comments about an immunity card. First of all, it was insane. It doesn't even make sense rationally. How are you going to give people immunity cards and have enough immunity cards if you're telling people to shelter in place and self-quarantine? You're not going to allow people to actually build up antibodies and have immunity to be able to hand out immunity cards. It doesn't make sense at all. He should bench him. I hope that he puts him on the bench pretty quickly and says, you know what, this is very nice. Thank you for your contributions, but I'm going to bring in other experts to have a conversation who realize the economic devastation that's taking place. But, John, I also pointed out, and the troubling rumblings about a national coronavirus surveillance system that some people inside the White House are proposing. To be very blunt, hell no. Absolutely not.
A surveillance
system. No way
system.
are we going to allow that to take place. That's what the Chinese are doing.
A surveillance
and there's no way we're going to do that.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It started with the Patriot Act that, by the way, I was railed against forever, railed against the son of the Patriot Act. Now this is like the grandchild of the Patriot Act.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. And people are just standing around saying, well, okay, let's have everybody surveilled because I might get sick. And of course, 99.8% of people that get sick recover. So the whole thing is mind-boggling to me that we've allowed this to happen. But you know what, Ned, there's truth to what you're saying. It almost seems that this is a social experiment. And when you look at what Gretchen Whitmer did, the governor of Michigan, Friday night, saying you can't buy seeds, you can't plant flowers, you can't cut your grass, you can't see a neighbor, you can't visit if you have 2 homes in Michigan, you can't visit the other home to see if it's okay. You cannot do that. And it's almost like they just wanted to see how far can we really go.
And how much are the American people going to accept without forcefully responding? And again, I'm kind of staggered by it, John, the fact that people, they're trying to keep us safe. We don't want to catch the virus. Holy cow. I mean, this is, again, got to qualify this and say just being very circumspect in saying this, it's almost like you feel like there's a quasi-martial law being backdoored through a supposed threat of a virus, and we're just sitting here taking it. This is why I think Trump, again, going back, Trump and the red state governors got to say, okay, enough's enough. We went down this path listening to the so-called experts, which, by the way, John, I've written about this. Trump needs to, once we get through this, say, I'm going to put together a blue panel commission, and we are going to examine NIH, CDC, all of these things, have really strong questions about what were you doing the last 10 years since the swine flu. How are we not better prepared to actually have real facts, real statistics? The modeling has been absolutely garbage based off false assumptions, garbage data. We are not going to let this happen again. So I think he really needs to put NIH, CDC on the spot and go, what are you doing so that next time we're not caught so unawares? And then we have to have a real conversation about who are these experts? And I just, John, at some point, I've been convinced that the higher learning is the more indoctrination centers of higher learning, right? At what point have we just decided that we're going to listen to a tapered idiocracy and say, oh, you're the experts here, we're just going to do whatever you say? At what point did we stop we should question everything. I'm at the point, and I've been in D.C. about 20 years, if a so-called expert shows up and says, we're going to absolutely do this, start asking questions. Why are you an expert? Where did you get your facts and statistics? What are your assumptions based off of?
Right.
Let's start having real questions about how we're coming to these conclusions instead of just accepting whatever the experts had to say. Let's get back to some rational thought and common sense.
All right, Ned Ryun, we're out of time. I want to thank Ned Ryun for being with us. He's the founder and CEO of American Majority. He is calling for a red state rebellion, which I'm 100% behind. Our civil liberties getting stripped from us. There's no opposition. There's no pushback. Right. It's like, fine, take them away. Our economy, the greatest economy in the history of the world, shuttered, stopped, zero production. 32 million people are going to be unemployed by the end of this month, and we're just standing around saying, well, it's okay to do that because, I don't know, the real goal for the Democrats, Ned, I believe, it's no longer about medicine or anything else. It's about politics. And they have one goal. Absolutely. Trash the economy, destroy it, sink Trump. That's now their entire objective.
100%.
Ned Ryun, I got to go.
I totally agree with you. Thanks, John.
John Fredericks Radio Network.